Welcome to Heal Dish, the space where healing gets real and you don't have to have it all together to grow. Each week we explore the nervous system, emotional resilience, and the journey from surviving to thriving. You're not broken, you're healing, and you don't have to do it alone. This is Heal Dish. Let's begin. Welcome back to Heal Dish. It's Monday, good old Monday evening. So here at Heal Dish, this is where we normalize healing. We challenge outdated mental health beliefs, and we remind you every single time you're not broken, you're healing. So welcome to Heal Dish. I am your host, Gina, and it's so good to be back on this Monday. How is everyone doing on this Monday? How was your holiday? Everybody have a good time. Good evening, Michael. So good to see you. We are in Northwest Ohio. We kind of got clobbered on Saturday night with some snow and ice. And now tonight we are looking at getting, I think it's like 2 to 5 inches again. And so the snow is beautiful, but I hate the cold because I can't get outside and enjoy the sun. So in the meantime, what I do is when I do see the sun and the sun peeks its beautiful head out of the clouds, I actually sit in my window with the curtains open and I allow that the sunlight to permeate my face and my body to feel the warmth, because even in the winter, we need immunity boosting, especially with the cold and the flu seasons and things like that. And so that is one of the things that I love to do for self-care. And so when I come out, my window faces, I don't even know what direction, because I'm directionally challenged, so I'm not even sure. And so I just know that whatever direction it is, that I'm able to feel the sun, and it just feels really good. And so it increases your vitamin D levels, your D3. So, hey, you know what? Next time you're feeling a little blue and the sun is out, open up your window and kind of just sit there and let the heat permeate, because it is an amazing feeling. Amazing. So Michael, yes, that's kind of the same with us. It's supposed to come. We're supposed to get a little bit, and then I think it's supposed to continue until tomorrow and stuff. So I'm like, well, the kids probably won't have school, or they'll be on a delay and things like that anyway. And so, well, it's winter, and they've already missed, I think, 4 days anyways. So, fifth day, and then they'll start doing those blizzard bags. So they don't have to make up any days at the end of the year. And so it's nice that they do that. Our kids start a little bit earlier, so they actually get out. I think it's the week. Sometimes it's the week before Memorial Day. Sometimes I think it's like that the week right after. But I believe it's like the end of May. And so we'll see, and things like that too, and kind of see what happens. And welcome to the part of the country where we get all the snow and the cold weather, and I don't feel like I don't plan on moving anytime soon. So, all right. So tonight, I have really been studying, a lot of real raw truth here at Heal Dish is brought on life experiences and just things of misdiagnoses and just so many other things. And so, one of the things that I've been studying, and I just finished writing a 12-week, actually it was a 15-week program, and then it'll be a 15-week practice, is on nervous system and somatics. And so I've been studying the nervous system for quite some time now, and there's so many different things that borderline personality disorder, what it comes up to. And and not only borderline personality disorder, but we've talked about anxiety and panic disorder. I may even start, talking about bipolar, because those are things that we need to talk about, because it does go back to the nervous system. And so what made me come up with this topic for this evening is I was really looking for, it is too early for cold and snow, I can't stand it, I like Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He's the leading psychologist, Trauma Institute in Massachusetts. And, he's the one that wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I've been following him for probably about 4 years now. Dr. Gabriel Maté, he's in Canada, phenomenal doctor as well. Janine Fisher, another phenomenal doctor. And so what they're discovering, again, as the body keeps the score, it's the nervous system that is driving a lot of the mental challenges, the mental health challenges that we face. And so I thought, you know what? I've read about borderline personality disorder. I was misdiagnosed with BPD, and I thought, you know what? I like to bring raw truth and help each and every one of you understand the correlation between trauma and mental health disorders, challenges, however you want to say it, and things like that. And so, if you or someone you know has borderline personality disorder, or you've ever wondered why emotions feel so intense, why relationships feel like a roller coaster, or why abandonment feels like the end of the world, take a deep breath. Tonight, we're rewriting the narrative. Borderline is not a character defect, it's not a personality flaw, and it's not a life sentence. It's a nervous system and survival mode. Not everything is known. Not everything that we know is meant to keep us safe. And so we've talked about the nervous system. We talked about, exactly what happens when our nervous system becomes dysregulated. And so let's break this wide open. Let's kind of talk about it. So what have you been told that borderline personality disorder is? A lot of people think that it's having multiple personalities. A lot of people think it's manipulative, it's drama, it's vital, attention seeking, untreatable. And so when I was bipolar 1 or 2, and what ends up happening is when you have these diagnoses, they come along with a brand of shame. And what happens is they feel heavy. So that shame just kind of feels a lot heavier than the symptoms themselves. And so, I share this. I mean, I was like a raging lunatic in my 20s and 30s and part of my 40s. I was just a raging lunatic. And so I was one of those ones that was labeled personality disorder. And so I was one of those ones that walked around thinking there was something wrong with me and that I was this mean person, and that I would just scream and holler and shout and do whatever I want, not whatever I wanted to do. I mean, pretty much in a nutshell. But I would scream and holler and just really act like I was losing my mind when I became heated and stuff like that. And so what the label personality disorder implies is something is wrong with who you are as a person. But technically that's not your core identity. So your core identity is flawed. And so that's what they're trying to say. So it's implying that something is wrong with who you are as a person and that your core identity is flawed. So what could be more damaging to somebody who already has fears, rejection, abandonment than being told your personality is disordered, sorry. Hello, Mr. Sly Fox. It's so good to see you this evening. I miss you. So think about it. We are told all of these lies. Maybe it's because they're not trauma informed. They're not trauma trained. They don't understand because there's so much research coming from neuroscience, neurobiology, neurophysiology coming in and saying all of this stuff about what BPD really is, or what they seem to think it is. And so your personality is not disordered. People with BPD are not unstable. They were never shown stability or safe attachment. And so think about it. When you're stuck in survival mode, you're fighting desperately not to be abandoned again. It's exactly what it is. And stuff. And so it's like, hi, King, RBX123. And then is it Tanja? Thank you so much for being here. And so when we go back to looking at the nervous system, when we go back to looking at stability, when we go back to look at safe attachment, if there was no caregiving and you didn't learn the safe attachment and there was no stability, of course you're going to be fighting desperately not to feel abandoned again. That's not manipulation. That is your nervous system in survival mode going, wait a minute, what's going on here? Hello. And kind of taking a look back and going, okay, what's going on? But they don't teach you those things. They don't teach you that your nervous system is technically not, it's not flawed. But they don't teach you that type of stuff. They just go around and think, oh, okay. And then they medicate you. And then people wonder why with medication, what ends up happening is it works temporarily. And then they have to increase your dose. And then they'll say, well, let's try you on something else, or let's do this, or let's do that. And then it's like, well, wait a minute. Like now you just become like, now you own every single pharmaceutical. And now you have all these prescription drugs trying to figure out which one works. And so you're not too emotional. What ends up happening is we feel deeply because your alarm system has been trained to detect danger everywhere. So think about that. Your amygdala, which is your fight or flight. So your amygdala automatically notices, wait a minute, there's a threat. The alarm system goes off. Then your prefrontal cortex automatically shuts off because you're activated and dysregulated. So now your logical thinking, executive functioning, all of that goes out the window. So now you're just sitting there going, wait a minute, what's going on? So when you try to think logically of something, you can't. So the intensity makes sense, the reactions make sense, and you make sense. So it goes back to, what did your nervous system feel? Are you dysregulated? Are you being triggered? Are you being activated in the moment? What senses are coming up to you that are activating your nervous system to make you feel the way you are? That's what it is. So when they say you have borderline personality disorder, how can they really diagnose you if your nervous system is not regulated? Think about it. Because it's not that you have multiple personalities. You just have multiple personalities in a sense of you're different around other people because of your triggering. It's your defense mechanism coming up. So let's get scientific for a moment so I can show you. So it's strongly linked to childhood trauma, emotional neglect, invalidating environments, attachment disruptions, chronic stress and hypervigilance, growing up without co-regulation. And so let's stop there for a minute and talk about that. So, going into childhood trauma, emotional neglect, invalidating environments. If you grew up in a household that there was abuse, that your emotions were not validated. You may have cried and your mom or dad may have told you to shut up, go sit down. Kids are to be seen, not heard. They weren't very validating when it came to your emotions. And so then you thought, oh, well, I can't cry because if I cry, that makes me look weak. If I cry and show my emotions, I'm not strong. Invalidating environments where people were very negative towards you. You weren't validated. Nothing was validated. You didn't have somebody that came to you and said, hey, good job on that spelling test. You got 100, or, good job that you did this. Good job. You did that. They didn't offer validation, hey, this, and this. So everything was invalidated. So you felt worthless. Attachment disruptions. When there is, childhood trauma, child abuse, and environments, how can you attach to your caregiver and feel safe if they're the ones that are causing the abuse? So your nervous system's like this all the time when you're around them. So that's why, think about it. Let's go back for a second and talk about babies. When you're holding a baby and you're trying to calm the baby down but then all of a sudden you start getting very anxious and just very ticked off and very frustrated. What usually happens? The baby starts getting more emotional and starts screaming and crying more. That's because that baby is not able to co-regulate with you in a positive way. That baby is co-regulating with you in a negative way. So that baby is sensing what's going on. So as soon as you can relax, the baby will relax. Think about that. So when we grew up and there was no co-regulation, meaning if I'm dysregulated or something's going on, I need to feel safe and secure. I need to know that you're going to protect me. You're going to be there for me. You're going to protect me, not hurt me. Hopefully that makes sense. And I also, just to let you know, I offer any questions. And so, hey, Dave, so good to see you. So if there's any questions, just put them in the chat and I will be sure to answer them. And as we move along. So when a child does not feel safe, does not feel emotionally safe, what ends up happening? The amygdala, which is the fear detector, becomes highly reactive. The prefrontal cortex, the logical thinking, executive function, goes offline under stress. And so the nervous system never learns to come back to calm. So you're constantly in this fight or flight because, excuse me, because your amygdala is staying hijacked. So what happens is the world becomes dangerous, unpredictable, and conditional. So it's like you're always constantly in a world of intensity, a world of nervousness, a world of fight or flight, where your anxiety or where the adrenaline builds up that you just want to be able to move around and flee and get away. Kind of the same thing happens with those that have ADHD. And that's going to be another podcast too, because there's a lot coming out about ADHD as well, and excuse me, in the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex, and how it all just kind of interwines or whatever that word is. Excuse me, my nose is itchy together, and it's just amazing just to see that the neuroscience and the neurobiology and the neurophysiology all coming together, and understanding. Because like I've said, many a times, we carry those wounds, but you can't see those wounds on the outside. We don't have physical wounds, but if you were to cut us down and dissect us and cut open our quadrants, you would be able to see the scars underneath of the trauma that we have endured, because it's there. It's there. But because it's under the skin, they only look at surface level. And that's why you should never judge a book by its cover. You should always smile, always try to be pleasant to anybody, because you really never know what somebody else is going through. And so what relationships feel like is, if you leave, I will die. That's because that's what happened in your childhood. If you stay, I might get hurt, because again, that's what happened in your childhood. I don't know what's safe, because the people that were supposed to protect you are the same ones that were hurting you. So that's not dysfunction. That is a survival map built by experience. Your system isn't broken, it is overprotective. And so the same people that were supposed to protect you, the same people that were supposed to love you and nurture you and take care of you, unfortunately, were the same people that actually caused your overprotectiveness. They were the ones that caused your relationships, because it goes back to relational abuse, relational trauma. And it starts with all of them, whether it was verbal abuse, emotional abuse, SA, or physical. That those are all on a relational level, and things. And it's like, whoa. I mean, is it, and so hopefully this is starting to make sense to you, how a lot of it is linked. A lot of it is linked to childhood trauma. A lot of it is linked to nervous system dysregulation, because it's like, how can you see who you truly are when your nervous system is dysregulated? How? I mean, I carried this for, I was diagnosed in my early 20s. And so like, I've never taken, I went off all of my medicines and stuff. And then of course, with anxiety, and then, bipolar, and that's what they told me and stuff like that. And so I would see a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and then I was on medication and things like that. And so, I mean, even though I've been off my medicine for over 10 years, even when I had my panic attack in May, and I started having them again, I thought, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And I literally, I mean, I went to the doctor and I got medication, but I never took it. It's actually sitting up in my cabinet. I never took it. Eventually I'll probably flush it, dump it, do something with it. But I really got to thinking, and so I remember praying to God, and I remember being healed on September 13th from that. And I remember sitting there just going, how many other people, I'm not the only one. How many other people are misdiagnosed? Yes, we do, Tanja. Yes, we do. And I remember just sitting there going, man, I'm not the only one. If I have panic, what is panic? And so when I do the neurosomatic art, I was figuring out that it went back to safety. That's what panic is. It's a safety. I was going to say a safety disorder, but I stopped because it's not a disorder and it's not a flaw. It goes back to safety. And so it's the same thing. Our survival map was shaped by experiences, environmental, biological, biological meaning intergenerational. Environmental is the environment that you grew up in. And so that is exactly what happened. So anyway, where I'm going with this is that my environment shaped me to be who I was. And then coming in from the intergenerational part of things shaped me to who I was. And so for probably 40, well, I'm just going to say from the age, I'm just going to say from like 16 when I really left. So, probably close to 30 years. I lived in a dysregulated state. I was mean. I was evil. And I'm not afraid to say that anymore. I used to be very afraid and very shameful. But you know what? I'm not anymore because God has delivered me from those things, and He's using the things that I've gone to help other people. And so I don't have that shame rise up anymore. And I'm so grateful to that because so many people need to hear these types of things. And so, we're always stigmatized. There's always something to do around mental health and things like that. And so when God, when I really started following God and I was writing my testimony, I'm actually speaking at a ladies' conference in March. So let me just share this really quick. I've been writing my testimony and really looking because I wasn't really sure where God saved my life. And so now I have the tangible proof of some of the things that God really saved my life in. And so one of the things that I was looking at was, just going back and saying, man, like now I have this tangible proof, and now I don't remember what I was going to say because that's what actually happens to my trauma brain. But anyway, when I'm going to try to remember, but I was writing my testimony, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, man, like all of these years, I remember now. So all of these years here, I thought that I was broken. I thought I was defective. I thought I was deformed. I thought I was stupid, unworthy, and all of these things. And so I'm writing my testimony. I could literally just feel the shift. And in the story, and I'm calling it a story, the testimony story, I could see everything and I could visualize everything that was taking place. And it was just absolutely amazing just to see where it was the environment that I was in. That for 30 years, I carried all of that junk, all of that. And God said, you know what? I may not have gotten my miracle. I may not have got healing just like that at the snap of my finger. And there was times that I was so angry and I would say, God, why? Like, why not? You heal all these other people, but now, why not me? Until I wrote my testimony out, my story out, I was like, oh, there it is, point blank, like staring me in the face in black and white, literally right there. And basically what God did was, I have all of these titles, but those titles don't define who I am. They don't define me. God literally brought me through every single program, every single thing that I'm doing, because He was setting me up to use everything that I know. He's led me through to literally get on the other side to help each and every one of you. All the titles mean nothing to me. But now I see that God was literally bringing me through every single program so I could heal myself, so I could start healing all of you or help heal all of you. Let me rephrase that for a minute. And so when we think about that, and when I thought about that, I was like, oh my goodness, like it literally changed my perspective. And so, I when I started dissecting it, it really made sense to me. And so I wanted to share that because, when you look at titles, sometimes people look at titles and it goes to their head. And it was in that moment as I was writing my titles down and the Holy Spirit was speaking to me on what to say, that I realized those titles mean nothing. Technically, those titles mean nothing. What means the most is that he literally carried me through every single program to get me the education and the tools and resources that I need so I can help each and every one of you. So that's even more powerful than anything, than anything. Thank you so much, this. And it's truly amazing. And I'm just like, wow. And so I will be speaking that testimony in March of next year, which I'm super excited for. In years and years wondering why we're not changed, but I didn't realize that so why I'm bringing this up is because I didn't realize that God literally was having me do all these programs and all these certifications because he was setting me up to where I am today. And so some people be like, oh, that's kind of, but some people be like, oh, that's a lot. Yeah, you're right. It is a lot. But guess what? It might be a lot, but my God knew what he was doing. Like God knew what he was doing. And so, I can't say anything about that. So let's move on before I get more in depth in that, but that's okay because it needed to be said. But, when we think about the stigma, when we think about what's going on and things like that and stuff and let's, when we think about it, what is the typical symptom and then what actually is it? So think about this. So when we think about it and we think about the symptom being the fear of abandonment, what truly is the fear of abandonment? So if we think about what it is, it's protecting attachment at all cost. So you're literally protecting yourself. I don't want to connect with this person and I don't want to attach because I'm afraid that they're going to leave me. I'm afraid they're going to hurt me because if they hurt me, that is exactly what everybody else did to me. And so it's learning to repair that relational, that attachment. What is your attachment? What is your attachment? I want to say attachment theory, but your attachment style. What is it? And so that's something really good to look into. One of these days, I think I'm going to try to do a podcast on attachment styles, or maybe starting next year in January. I really want to start having guests on. So maybe I can find somebody that knows about attachment theories and stuff like that too. So and stuff. No, I ended up hitting the screen, and so it kind of jiggled my computer screen a little bit. So I apologize. If you're thinking about mood swings, so if the symptom is mood swings, what actually is it? So actually it's the nervous system flipping between rapid states. So going from, so think about it. What is borderline personality disorder? What is bipolar? And so, I'm not a medical doctor, but and I can't treat, cure, diagnose all of the 9 yards. But I like learning things from a neuroscience and neurobiology and neurophysiology perspective. Those are nice words. I like saying those. They make me feel smart. No, seriously. But think about it. So when your nervous system's flipping between rapid states, it's going from activated to regulated. And then, you're activating the parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest, and then your sympathetic nervous system, which is actually the you're on the other side. So that's where you're dysregulated. Couldn't think of the other word for it, but that's where you're dysregulated. And so what happens is when you are dysregulated and regulated, you go back and forth in between the two states, and then your mood swings. So 1 minute you might be happy and you might be joyous, and all of a sudden you go somewhere else and your mood automatically changes. So then what I tell my clients is this: if you notice a shift in your mood, or you notice a shift in your body or something else, you need to figure out what the trigger is. What is activating your nervous system that your mood swings are going up and down and everything else. I had huge mood swings. I thought it was normal until God again shifted me out of that. It's not normal. But I will tell you this: when you are activated and your prefrontal cortex shuts off, there are times you cannot help when you just start spewing at the mouth. Can't help it. And my husband and I, we had a discussion about this, and I ended up showing him proof that was something when the prefrontal cortex shuts off and you're activated, you truly have no control over what happens up here. And so because you have taken on the environment of what you've lived, that's usually what comes out. It's usually even as Christians, when you're regulated, think about it, when you're regulated, everything comes out nice, but when you're dysregulated, you might have a little bit of ugliness coming out. And that's why people will say that it's mood swings. And so I like to shift back and forth and say, okay, God can change you. Absolutely, He can, and God can change us. But there are things that I firmly believe that are part of trauma, and we need to work on those. And God will carry you through. You just have to open your eyes and see. So think about that. Black and white thinking, and so a survival decision: safe or not safe. So think about black and white. And when it comes to thinking, you have to look at, are you safe or are you not safe? You should know the difference between what it is. Identity confusion, lack of self-mirroring growing up. So who were you? Who was your identity? Do you even know who you are? Probably not. I'm just now learning at 50 years old who I am. And it's sad that it's taken this long for me to identify, or to be able to identify who I am, besides being a wife and a mother, and a grandmother. I'm able to find out who my identity is, not just in Christ, but in myself. Who am I? And so I'm starting to identify who I am. So impulse, reducing unbearable and internal sensations. And so impulse decisions. How many teens have impulse decisions and end up getting into trouble? How many adults are activated, have impulse decisions, and end up getting in trouble? We see it all the time. It goes back to emotional dysregulation. Your emotions run high. You don't know how to calm yourself down. And so now you have impulse. And it goes back to, what are you feeling? It goes back to those internal sensations. What are you feeling inside? What are you trying to get this temporary dopamine, serotonin levels up? Why? What is the impulse? And so, because teens are still growing and their brain is still developing, a lot of their impulses, they get so irritated, they don't know how to calm themselves down. So it goes back to, again, emotional dysregulation. And so what we try to teach them is emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, because when you have an impulse decision, usually just go and do it without hesitation because you're ticked off. So it's learning to sit with that impulse and saying, what am I going to do? I used to have impulse. I used to be very, very revengeful, very negative. And it was like, whatever you did to me, I'm going to do back to you, and stuff. And so I don't deal with impulse anymore. Thank the Lord. I don't deal with that anymore. That impulsiveness is just, wow. It can be bad. Especially if you don't get it under control. Anger outburst, fight mode to regain control. And so the anger outburst is a part of fight mode, which is a part of the amygdala going back and forth between activation and non-activating, between what was I going to say? Hijacked and being hijacked, being in regulation or dysregulation. And then when it's hijacked, that is when everything just kind of shuts off. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. And then that's when a lot of the anger starts bursting out, because you are in fight mode. And so I was in fight mode for a long time, and I'm working through, I don't know if you go through all of them, you might. I'm kind of in the fleeing mode right now. Like if I don't feel safe, I want to flee. I'm really working on that because I don't like being in that mode. I really like to go back to fight, or I don't want to do freeze, but I'm like, let me just fight, because that'd probably be better. A symptom, self-harm, coping with overwhelming distress. And so we don't self-harm just to do it. We're just dealing with an immense overwhelmed distress. And so sometimes that's what we need to do, even though people will judge us and say things about us. But that's what it is. It's the overwhelming distress. So, and things like that too. And so, yeah. And so, I never, I like to bring in, my life experience. I never technically, self-harmed, um, or anything like that. But what I did do is, if you know me, I mean, obviously it's winter. I have a long sleeve shirt, but I do have a lot of tattoos. My tattoos are very meaningful. But there was a time and a place when I would get tattoos because I was in so much pain that I would get a tattoo, long tattoos. So I would forget about the pain. And realistically speaking, that was a form of self-harm. I would indulge in allowing somebody else to give me immense pain so I would forget about the pain that I was truly going through. And so I love my tattoos. I would not change them. They're all very meaningful. But that's a part of my story. That's a part of my testimony, and stuff like that. And so my kids, always tease me, my husband, not in a bad way, but they always tease me. And they're like, oh, Mom, we should go get another tattoo. And I'm like, I really don't live there anymore. Like, I don't want any tattoos. But I have a younger daughter, and I have, all the other kids tattooed on me, and their name or something else. And so I really feel like, I really need to get something on my body for her. I don't want her to feel left out. And then the kids and I want to do something like maybe Ohana, an Ohana tattoo and stuff like that. So we'll see. I'm not completely sold, and it really just depends. And so it's really, for me, it's really going back, and healing that part of me that used the tattoos for that reason, and go back with a different understanding that I'm doing them as a healed person and not unhealed. And sometimes that takes a little bit longer to heal, that conscious level, to try to, get us to bring forth, that healing and stuff like that, to say, you know what, tattoos aren't a bad thing. But looking at why am I doing it now versus why I did it then? And so, with everything, everybody judges. You are so welcome. Everybody judges everyone. Even people that, oh, nope, nope, nope. But think about it. We all get judged, and we all get judged on our appearance, and the way we act. And so it's a response to threat. It's real and remembered. And so most people will say, oh, well, look at her, or look at him, da 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 da. And they may call you names and criticize you without truly knowing what's going on. Instead of saying, hey, you know what? Can I listen to you? Can I offer you space? Instead, they just want to judge. It happened to me all the time. And so when somebody with BPD panics after a small understanding, their body is reacting as if they were 5 years old again, and the person they depend on is walking away forever. And so what that is the nervous system, time traveling to trauma. And so I just literally learned this as I was going through and working on my other certification program that I'm doing. I didn't realize this. But this is very interesting. And I love that, that I'm bringing this up again, because I didn't realize this, but when you're triggered, and you become activated, you literally go back to the age of your trauma when it started. And I was just like, wow, like, really? So think about it. So it's the same thing when somebody has, their BPD panics after a small understanding. What happens is it takes them back, to whatever age, to where they, the person that they were depending on wasn't there. And it's like they walked away forever. That interesting? I thought that was really interesting. And so it's the same thing when, whether it's with, BPD, or it's with, being activated, it's the same exact thing. So do you see where there's a lot of similarities, a lot of correlation? And so, yeah. And so I didn't realize that. So so that was something that I was just like, wow, that I don't really want to say it's cool. Let me use the word interesting, because it's very interesting that research, neuroscience, neurobiology, neurophysiology has come this far. And I often sit there and say, but it's all in God's timing. But I often sit there and say, you know what? Where would I be today if 25 years ago I was where I am right now? If I was 25 and here I am doing a podcast and all that stuff. Can you imagine, how many people we could have saved, we could have changed? But I know it's in God's timing. But I often sit back and think about those types of things. And so, yeah, it's really, really interesting to me. And so when we go back and when we look at everything that people judge, what you need to understand is, instead of saying what is wrong with you, we might ask what happened to you and how can we make you feel safe again? How can I validate your feelings? How can I listen to you? And listening is listening without judgment. Listening is truly listening without opening your mouth. That is truly what listening is. When you can sit there and listen to someone without trying to offer any advice or take over, that's huge. When I first started coaching, when I first started doing what I was doing, I would listen, but then I would try to be the rescuer. I would try to give them what they needed instead of listening to what they wanted, because we all have the power to heal in us. You just need that right person to start working with you to bring it up. That's exactly what it is. And so, yeah, it's just interesting. Really, really interesting. So here's the hopeful part. When it comes to borderline personality disorder, the brain and nervous system are changeable, which is absolutely amazing. So healing BPD is not about fixing who you are. It's about teaching your nervous system that emotions are survivable, connections can be safe, abandonment is unlikely, and you are worthy, you are worthy of belonging. And so that is so true. So true. And not only for people that have BPD, but also for trauma survivors. You have to understand that, emotions, we can change your emotions. Connections, they can be safe. That's where the relationships, that's when you're with somebody that makes you feel safe. Abandonment is unlikely. When you start getting in relationships that feel safe and there's safety and connection, your abandonment wound starts to heal itself. I struggled with this abandonment for a very long time. I would always, there was times I would treat my husband like trash. And the reason, obviously just being dysregulated, but I would treat him like trash because I figured if I treated him like trash, he would leave me. And I put him to the test to leave, because if he left, I could deal with it. Like I was being mean to him, that he would leave. And he never left. He's still here. And so and so we've been together for a long time. And it's like that abandoned wound just, slowly started just healing. And it's taken me a very long time. We've been together, I think 25 years, almost, 25 years. It'll be. And or it is 25 years. I had to think, I'm like, wait a minute, is it 25 years? Yeah. And yeah, you are. And he just didn't get up. He did not give up easily. And I love that about him. And he stayed with me through thick and thin. And so it was just within the last couple of years that I have been able to start healing that abandonment wound, because he hasn't left. I mean, I was the meanest, I believe probably the meanest anybody could probably be to somebody. And he still stuck around. And I have a 13-year-old that, likes to throw it in my face from time to time. And, oh, you're mean to dad, da, 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 da. And I'm like, no, I'm not mean. But, I used to be, but not anymore. Like, I'm just direct now. I mean, I try not to come off as being mean or anything like that. But there are things that need to get done and things like that. And so anyway, that's a part of me that I'm working on, that abandonment wound, really working on that, because that is a part of us. It's a part of who we are. And then when we have that abandonment wound, as Christians, what ends up happening is we put God in a category with I did with my earthly father. And so that abandonment wound was hindering me from having a relationship with God to the way that I truly wanted one. And so, um, when we're working on nervous system in the brain, I like to always encourage people to do trauma informed movements. So let me tell you about what trauma informed movements are, why I highly encourage them. Trauma lives in the body. It lives in the cells. It lives in the physiological systems of the entire body. In order to release it, talk therapy only takes us so far. So you need to do something to start releasing that trapped trauma from your body, is what we call them. It's like trapped emotions, and it's in the cellular level of the body. If you have chronic pain, that is probably, chances are, that is part of your trauma response. There's research that fibromyalgia, lupus, MS, a lot of those are from trauma. It's the inflammation gets in the body, and the inflammation starts overriding the system and the systems. And so when you start working out and start exercising and start depleting the inflammation in your body, you'll start reducing the symptoms of the autoimmunes that you have, the chronic pain, autoimmune, and all of that. And so dance party. What I like about dance party is if I would tell my clients to go exercise, they would look at me and say, I'm not exercising, Gina. But if I tell them to do dance party, they love it. And so dance party is you just turn on your favorite song, dance the night away, 5 minutes, not the night away, 5 minutes, and sing. Belt out those tunes as if you're worshiping God, or if you're just, belting out tunes in the garage, in your house, in the shower, whatever you want to do. And here's why. Trauma survivors, when they're activated, they breathe from the chest up. And you can always tell when somebody's dysregulated, activated, because you'll see there's, like, when they breathe, it's kind of like you can literally see this top half of their body move. If you don't start breathing in the lower half of your lungs, those lungs lose capacity. That part of the lungs, you'll start losing your capacity. Your bronchi and your bronchioles will start having a lot of the CO2 get stuck because you're not releasing it like you should. And so what dance party does is when you're belting out those tunes, you're taking long inhales, like deep, long inhales. And then you're belting out more tunes, and then you're inhaling again. And so what you're doing, without you even realizing, you're filling up your lungs. So now you're working your lungs. So I tell my clients, do it every day. You'll feel so much better, and you'll thank me later. Every day, 5 minutes. Amazing. And so what happens is you start working your lung capacity. And when you start working your lung capacity, you start noticing a lot more when it comes to panic attacks, anxiety attacks. You don't feel that heaviness in your chest. If you start to feel that heaviness in the chest, I taught this last week, what you want to do is hold your hands up, bring your shoulder blades together, and just, on the count of, just count to 10 slowly, nothing fast, count to 10. And then you'll want to as you're exhaling, and then slowly release. You can do that probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. So what you're doing is, when you're doing this, you are opening up your chest cavity. You're opening it up to say, wait a minute, okay, now you're expanding it. So now you should be able to breathe a lot better, instead of when you have those panics, you hyperventilate. So it makes a world of difference to do those. Dance party. I love dance party. Somatic therapies. So you can do any type of exercising, not exercising, stretching, things like that. There's all kinds of things. Nervous system regulation skills. It's all about getting the vagus nerve activated. That is where your rest and digest, where your calm and relaxation comes into play. And so that is another one. There's a lot of different nervous system regulation skills out there. YouTube is filled with a lot of them as well. And so neuroplasticity focused modalities like NeuroSomatic Art. I am the founder and creator of that. It's a therapeutic art. It's similar to kind of a brain reprogramming. But when people come to me, especially teens, adolescents, and they don't have the words to describe their trauma, we go into art. We go into drawing, and believe it or not, the drawing will start showcasing and telling their story. It speaks the words for them. And so what we end up doing, and why we're doing the art, you're changing the neuroplasticity, which neuroplasticity is changing the neural pathways in the brain. So it goes from the subconscious to the unconscious to the conscious level. And then, so that's a part of neuroplasticity. Neurogenesis is when we actually start forming new neural pathways. And so when we start changing our patterns, we start changing our neurons. We start changing. That's where neuroplasticity comes in and neurogenesis comes in. Trauma informed DPT. So this is another one. It's dialectal behavioral therapy. I think that's how you say the word. And so that is a lot of what they do. It's a lot of working on the brain. But here I want to show you one thing. CBT and DBT sometimes are not effective for somebody with an activated nervous system, because what happens is that what's driving the thoughts is the actual body. So it's the physiological driving the psychological. So you literally have to work on the physiological before you can work on the psychological. And so it's the triggering. So when you start talking about something, it triggers the body, which triggers even more in the mind. And so you have to start working on the body of what's coming up, because it's that's what is making what's coming up in the mind come up. If that makes sense. And then you want to make sure that you have a lot of safe and consistent relationships. So you need to make sure that your relationships, your relationships are with people that are solid, meaning, they're not screwballs and not going to leave you. They have your back. They're positive people. They're not fueling any of your negativity if you're a negative person like I used to be. Really looking at, are they consistent? Are they always there for you? When you need somebody, are they there? Really looking at the consistency of your relationships, and really looking at those types of things as well. That really makes a huge difference as well. Attachment repair with co-regulation. And so really looking at attachment. What attachment style do you have? Looking at why you have that attachment style, and then how can co-regulation help you in relationships. And as coaches, we have to be, and even therapists have to be, very mindful of this. We have to be very mindful when a client is co-regulating with us, because what ends up happening is that when we give them tools and resources and they don't feel safe, they will email us continuously for validation. Continuously. I had a client when I first started. I started 4 years ago, so probably about 3 years ago, and she was very, very dysregulated. And this is before I even knew what dysregulation was. And she would text me, she would call me, on my business phone. She would text me, she would call me, she would email me. Every time she was dysregulated, she wouldn't show up for sessions. She was spending money, and on sessions, and then not show. And finally I was like, no, this is a lot. And even though I was teaching her the tools and resources and we were working together, her body was feeling safe with me, that she felt like that I was more than a mentor, coach to her, that she felt like I was a friend. And so I had to, set that boundary and say, no, I don't mind helping you, but I'm not going to answer your emails and your text messages and your phone calls every time you call me. And so it goes back to learning what your attachment style is and learning your co-regulation. Who is there for you? Who is going to help you calm down in your time of need? What types of things can you feel safe in? And then mindfulness, grounding, and breath work. And what I love about mindfulness, grounding, and breath work is that we literally do all of that in NeuroSomatic Art. We learn mindfulness, we learn grounding, safety, and then breath work. We learn to navigate our breath, and we learn to stabilize our breath while we're doing it. Because when we start working and we start bringing up things that could be activating, it changes our breath. And so we use our breath to calm ourselves down again as well. So that's pretty interesting. And so there's a lot out there on YouTube that you can find. There's a lot of different things out there. I love NeuroSomatic Art. I've always been crafty. I loved coloring. I love creating. I love crafting. And now looking back, that was probably one of the things that truly saved my life, just doodling. Because here I am all these years later. I literally wrote a 12, 16, and 24 week Therapeutic Art Healing and Transformational Program. And it's helped me. Still to this day, I draw. I have my 8-year-old. She'll draw with me from time to time as well. And so it's just amazing. I love it. Absolutely love it. And so one thing I do want you to understand is healing is not linear. And so you're going to be all over the place. I wish I had my little thing that I bring to events with me. But it's not linear, but it's very absolutely positive. Hi, Heather. Good to see you. But it's possible. And so when somebody says, "Oh, healing is like this," no, are you nuts? No. Just like they'll tell you that grieving has like 10 stages, 7 stages. No, one day you're going to be happy. The next day you might be sad. The next day you're going to be mad. The next day you're going to be sad. You might be happy. And then you're going to be mad, sad, the whole thing. And so that's exactly what happens to trauma when you're healing, when you're trying to heal and transform. Healing is not linear. You're going to have your setbacks. You're going to have to where you have a loop this way. You might take 10 steps forward and you have to take 20 steps back. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But realistically speaking, that can. What if we peel the onion? We're layers. We didn't get this way overnight. So you can't expect to be healed overnight. And so we peel those layers like an onion. But what happens is when we start getting activated, the peel starts going back on the onion. And so now we have to come back out of that. We have to work through that activation and come back out on the other side. And so what I want you to remember is this: you're not too much. You are not hopeless. You are healing. And that's what I want you to, that's what I want you to recognize. And that's what I want you to tell yourself, because so many of us don't recognize that. So many of us, we're hard on ourselves. We're human. Absolutely. But so many of us, we are so self-critical, and, we say and do things that we probably shouldn't. But just remember, you are not too much. You are not hopeless, and you are healing. Those are powerful words. Those are very powerful words. And so I want to kind of look at, a few reframes that I want to kind of show you how using the word yet and just using different words can really help us reframe. And it goes back to dysregulation. It goes back to emotional intensity. It goes back to learned chaos, feeling unstable, unloved, and then realizing that you're not truly broken. And then going back and understanding, different things when it comes to the nervous system. And so emotional intensity is not a flaw. It's a superpower that hasn't felt safe yet. And so remember, it's the emotions of the nervous system. It's that intensity. And so what that intensity, those emotions are trying to tell you is something: I am not safe. So it's trying to tell you you're not safe, and there's a reason why. So you need to really listen to that. You learn chaos because peace was never modeled. Now you are learning calm. Just like me, I grew up in a very chaotic environment, very chaotic. And a lot of yelling, a lot of abuse that was witnessed. And so I am now learning that I can sit and calm and actually enjoy it. I hated sitting in quiet rooms. I hated sitting where it was quiet. I always had to have a TV on. I always had to have music on because it was the chaos. I needed something. And so I'm learning to sit in the calm and just sit in the peace, like I am here in my studio, to sit in here and just sit in the peace and say, you know what? I love this. It's not chaos. It's peaceful. And so you will learn to start doing that as well. You're not unstable. You were never taught stability. And so when there's no stability, how can you have stability? So think about it. Don't judge yourself and don't be hard on yourself. You are not unloved. You just haven't experienced consistent love yet. And so when the people that are supposed to love you hurt you, and the people that love you call you names, put you down, they hit you, that's not love. That's hate. That's abuse. That is not an environment to stay in. and you're going to feel unloved because of that. And if you are going through that, anybody, you can really reach out to me. But what ends up happening is when you are not when you're not unlovable, what ends up happening is finding love, but it's that consistency. Whether you find it in a friend, somebody that a friendship that makes you feel loved and seen and heard and validated, that's where that truly starts. And then understanding that you're not broken. And so it's reorganizing yourself around safety. And for a long time, I would say, man, I'm broken, I'm flawed, like I said in the beginning. And so then I started realizing, as I'm studying, wow, it's really looking at yourself and reorganizing yourself around safety. What is safety? A lot of people don't like to sit quietly because they don't like what's going on up here. But when you can get up here, stopped, and understand that the reason this is going is because it's the unsafe feeling. Your mind doesn't feel safe, and it's your body that's driving these thoughts. So getting your body safe will stop these, minimize these. So your nervous system is not the enemy. It's your protector that never got the memo. So you survived. You're safe now. So what I want you to do is I really want you to think about tonight's message and let it sink in. Really let it sink in and understand that that it technically has nothing to do with you. It's your environment. It's your biological. We're working against a dysregulated nervous system, dysregulated emotions. So now you start seeing how it's all coming together. And so you don't have to understand everything today, and you don't have to heal everything today. Like I said, healing, we didn't get this way overnight, and we're not going to get healed all in one day. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes just patience. And patience is a virtue. And I didn't have any for the longest time. But what you can do is you can soften, you can breathe, and you can give yourself credit for surviving what others can't see. Because, I've given my testimony one time on here, but it really wasn't in depth. But if I literally told you more of my testimony, and I'm sure a lot of us too, we would be like, holy mackerel. People don't understand what we go through because they can't see it. But I remember having my conference last year, and one of the speakers said, can you imagine if I walked in the room and I had a flyer, not a flyer, but I had something on me that showed everything that I did? Can you imagine how many people would probably judge me? And think about it. And so, that's people judging based on who we used to be, but not looking at it was the trauma that drove all of those things and things like that too. So your story isn't borderline. Your story is resilient. Thank you for being here, for choosing healing, and for letting your nervous system learn a new possibility with me tonight. And so, again, it goes back to resilience. It goes back to understanding where you've come from, who you are, and where you're going. That we don't want to stay here any longer. We want to shift and shift and shift so we just can start getting into this healing and transformation stage. Does anybody have any questions before we start our close or anything like that? And so I do want to just want to say, if you found it helpful, if you're not a subscriber, if you would subscribe. I go live every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, here on Facebook and on YouTube. And also, we never know what the battle is that somebody else is facing. And so if you would share the live, you can go to the YouTube and share the link. If you could share it with someone who needs to be understood, I would really appreciate that. You just never know. That's why I do these real raw truth about trauma and mental health, because you never know who needs a voice. You never know who's still in the dark. We don't, and so, it never know what episode is really going to bring somebody out of that darkness. And I always say, we are the voice for the voiceless. We are a community, here, and very supportive, very understanding. I think most of us are trauma survivors. And so, I do this because There's always somebody out there that needs to hear this. And even if I only get 5 or 6 people, you know what? That's perfectly fine. I'm happy with that. I enjoy what I do, and God's sending me here to deliver a message and to help each and every one of you. And so join me next time for another step on the journey from surviving to thriving. And so remember, you're not broken, you're healing. And this is Healedish. And so I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful rest of your night. I hope the states that are getting snow, I hope that you don't get a whole lot of snow. We're supposed to get, like I said, up to, I think, 4 or 5 inches tonight and into the morning. And so I hope that's not the case. The kids just were off school. If you're on my Facebook, I posted a picture of, I was like, I love my kids, but it's like sometimes they constantly fight. And so then it dysregulates my nervous system. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, and things like that. So anyway, I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful night. Stay warm. If you're in where it's cold, if you're where it's warm, well, send some of the warmth this way, because we surely need it here up north. And again, make sure that you like, share, and if you're not a subscriber, go over to my YouTube and subscribe. I would love to have you. And so I will be praying for each and every one of you. Have a blessed week. Stay safe. I love you guys, and I will see you next week. Good night, everyone.